Would you lawyer up? This story about an HOA president and the most terrible neighbor ever is insane. Here's what's up. I, 31 female, am the HOA president of a 14-house neighborhood. This neighborhood was built in 2017 and 18 by each individual neighbor, by hand with supervision alongside professional contractors and subcontractors as part of a low-income sweat equity government program backed by the USDA RD. Our HOA is self-governed, meaning the board members live in the neighborhood and we don't use a management company. Our dues are $360 per year. Average HOA dues for our county are between $200 to $500 per month, but ours are extremely low because it's a low-income neighborhood and we don't have like tennis courts, play areas, common areas to hang out in, and so on. 100% of the money goes to road and retention pond maintenance, insurance, taxes, and so on. This year, we'll spend over half of our total account balance getting our 2 roads and 2 cul-de-sacs a new asphalt seal coat to prevent further damage and cracking. Board members, including myself, don't get paid and actually often spend out of pocket ourselves for things like stamps and printer ink, food for our meetings, and so on. Things that any normal nonprofit would have a budget for. As an HOA, the board has a history of being extremely lenient with enforcing the rules, even to our financial loss. We have never charged a late fee, even after waiting over a year for late payments, never written anyone up for any of the countless violations, never done anything to enforce the rules, actually because, well, to be fair, the rules were just handed to us by this government program, and they don't make any logical sense for a rural neighborhood. All we're trying to do is make sure the roads don't fall apart, add some speed bumps, and keep the retention ponds functional. Functional, not aesthetic. They're overgrown as heck and behind tall locked fences to keep kids away from tragic accidents. Unfortunately, all those things cost way more than we bring in per year, so we've been saving up the dues money, not raising rates either, the entire 4 years that we've been collecting it. This year, we can finally afford street sealing, the highest priority and highest cost item. We're not your expensive or a measure your grass citation happy HOA. Now, we do have one neighbor who has been difficult from the very start of the build. This neighbor didn't show up to mandatory team meetings, didn't put in her required 30 hours of labor per week, and just generally screwed off while the rest of us built the house for her. Everyone else who put in the time, effort, and energy attended Saturday morning group construction meetings every week for a year and followed the very explicit group rules that we were all told that we'd be kicked out of the program for breaking, was understandably annoyed, and then upset, and then downright angry that apparently the rules were just for rule followers and didn't have any real consequences. After a year of her following a pattern of don't work or show up, have a meeting with the program directors, not neighbors, about her behavior, show up once, repeat, she got her keys and moved in alongside the rest of us. Then the real problem started. Like I said, the HOA is cheap. $360 a year or $30 a month. 13 low-income households pay their dues every year, and some of them have paid late or even very late. But they made contact, they explained the situations and paid eventually, and then we're chill, even though it's within our rights and contract to charge interest and even file a lien against any unpaying property. In our 4 years as a neighborhood, the same problem. Neighbor has paid $40 cash, total. All other neighbors who all qualify for the same low-income program have paid $360 every year, totaling $1,440 per family. For 4 years, all of our very chill attempts at collecting dues have been met with a text from her, saying something along the lines of, "Sounds great, unfortunately, I can't pay that right now." Or no response at all, or an error because she changed her number or email or whatever. To our knowledge, she's also not made a mortgage payment ever. If she gets a job, they'll garnish her wages, but the USDA plus COVID is just very exceptionally slow to foreclose on her. I know the process was started a couple of years ago, but nothing has changed and she still lives in the house. Here's the thing though. She and her boyfriend, probably the mastermind here, are terrible neighbors. They sell illegal substances and stolen goods. They don't have jobs but consistently have new tools and new toys. They have dozens of visitors all day and all night who go straight to the back garage door and leave after 5 minutes. They have loud altercations which have resulted in police involvement more than once, but nobody presses charges. A teenager living there OD'd. He survived, thank God. They do not pay for garbage service and instead pile bags upon bags of trash onto their back porch and against the fence that their next door neighbor, unfortunately me, paid out of pocket to build. This has led to a giant rat infestation and my dogs pulling trash into my yard under the fence. They burn their garbage in a barrel out back. And last night during a burn, they must have tossed in some aerosol can or propane tank or something because an explosion shook our bedroom and rocked our TV and hanging photos. Her response to my, "Hey, is everything okay over there? Because there was a literal explosion," text was, and always inconveniently is, "Well, I don't know, I wasn't home or just pulling in." Just all around trashy. As an HOA, we, myself, the treasurer and secretary, decided a long time ago that the only way we'd ever get paid was by recording a real estate lien against her, so that when the house goes to auction, at least the bank will pay us. We got misleading information about filing liens from the original program that we built the houses through, and because of that, we wasted 2 years trying to chase down the paperwork to file. Turns out, civilians can't just file a lien, but we finally found a local company that specializes in liens who's going to do it for $356.60. Cool, great, done. As stated in our bylaws, the homeowner is responsible for all their debts as well as for any expenses that we have to pay to collect them. After the lien and the interest, 12% per year, and we didn't even compound it, on her 4 years of unpaid dues, minus $40, she owes over $2,800. It's not a ton, but it's definitely not nothing. It also cost $120 or so to have the lien removed after payment. Yesterday, I met with a lawyer to start the process of foreclosing on the lien. It's within our legal rights and abilities to do so. Another cost that we pay out of pocket, but can add to the total cost of the lien as she's responsible for paying any legal fees related to collecting her debts. I called around till I found the cheapest lawyer. His basic fee for lien foreclosures is about $2,500 compared to the $7,500 that I was quoted by the lawyer that the lien company recommended. We're not trying to screw her over here, is what I'm trying to get at. We're not racking up billable hours with the best and the brightest, and actually this lawyer seems like he doesn't even know what he's doing, but we can afford him at least. We don't even have a bill yet, because yesterday's meeting was just a free initial consultation. So our out-of-pocket expenses so far are $356.60, plus like $6 for certified mail, plus potentially $120-ish for closing the lien if she pays it. The lawyer said that what usually happens is that both her and the lender, USDA, get taken to court. The lender then pays her debts and adds it to her total mortgage. Side note, the current boyfriend isn't on the home loan, so very unfortunately, he isn't legally responsible for any of the house-related finances, even if he's the driving force behind the undesirable activity. Well, yesterday, she texted another board member, who also happens to be her neighbor on the other side, asking if we'd settle with her. They have a more friendly relationship than she has with anyone else in the neighborhood. My instant reaction was, heck no. In 4 years, she's made no attempt to settle, get on a payment plan, or do anything at all to lessen her debts. That, plus the overall pattern that she's demonstrated of do nothing till she's in trouble, do bare minimum to get out of trouble, repeat, on top of the general nuisance property complaints, have done very little to foster goodwill between her and anyone else. And honestly, I don't want her to live here anymore. We're all low income, but she's the only problem and nuisance property and drug house. I don't want to be forced into legal action every freaking year because it's the only thing that gets her to actually make a payment or one single attempt at paying anything. The other board member asked her to give us a number and we'd talk, and we haven't heard what the number is yet. I think I'd be willing to waive the interest only, but not any of the expenses that we've already paid for or the cost of removing the lien. But I don't want to. I want to take legal action. I want to take her and her lender, the USDA, to court in hopes that the USDA will finally actually sell her house and get the heck out. My gripe isn't just with her, it's also with the USDA RD for allowing her to stay in the program after countless complaints, even while she broke every rule and then some, including instances on site where police had to be called. So at this point, I want the USDA to feel the giant pain in the butt that we felt for 4 years due to their own enabling, negligence, and refusal to enforce their own program rules. Am I the butt for thinking that we should move forward with the lawyer and take her and the USDA to court? Commenter says and OP replies, not the butt. She's never going to pay y'all fully. The only way you can fix this is to rip the problem out by the root, and to do that, you've got to go through the courts. Encourage your fellow members to strengthen their resolve. It sounds like there's kids in the neighborhood, and you don't need a tragedy to happen. OP replies, there are literally 20 plus kids in the neighborhood. Only one household has no kids, and several have 5 or more. Tragedy feels like impending doom right now. Time to lawyer up. I mean, you're going to have kids in danger here, and they've had 4 years to actually do something, and they don't. They're just taking advantage of you, walking all over you, OP. Terrible HOA story time. I live in a middle-class neighborhood that's in a more affluent side of town. The houses all have similar colors and layouts, there's an HOA, and we have a community pool, and so on. I'm currently a college student living with my dad, and I very recently got a new car, a 2008 Nissan Sentra that my uncle used to own. He told me that if I paid to have it transported across the country and paid for whatever needed to be fixed at the mechanic, the car was mine. I agreed, I paid everything, and the car is mine now. I've had it for just under 2 weeks at this point, not counting the time it spent at the auto shop. I mentioned that our neighborhood has an HOA. Well, much like other HOAs, this one has some interesting rules in place. Namely, and this is the rule that affects this post's existence, there is a rule that no cars, absolutely no exceptions, may be parked on the street at any time past 2 a.m. This includes family, friends, and anyone else. If it's there, the car will be towed with 0 notice, and it's a $220 fee to pick it up from the towing company that the HOA employs. My dad, several years ago, learned all of this the hard way, as he had to go pay the fee and pick up the car a few months after we moved in, which was in 2012, and he didn't know about that rule yet. Cutting about to 30 minutes ago, I was sitting in my room working on late-night homework, mostly because I'm a master procrastinator, and working at night stimulates my brain, or something. I'd said goodnight to my dad some hours ago, and my younger brother is asleep in the room next to mine. It's his birthday today, so he's back up from university dorm for the weekend. Suddenly, I hear my dad call out something about keeping our dog inside, and then the sound of the front door closing. Curious, I set down my headset, turn on the light in my room, grab my phone, and walk towards the front of the house. The house isn't big, so it takes me less than half a minute to reach the front door. My first thought, as I was heading to the door, was that, somehow, our dog got loose out of the front. We've had issues with us forgetting to lock or close the door in the past, due to us sometimes being a forgetful family, but I was sure there wasn't an issue there. It wasn't until I remembered that my car was parked on the street. Dad had to move it earlier during one of my online classes so that he could take his car out to pick up my brother, and we had forgotten to drive it back up onto the driveway. Therefore, when I open the door, through the darkness, I see the red lights of the tow truck, my precious new car lifted up onto its 2 back wheels, and my dad standing at the passenger side window trying to plead with the tow truck driver. Panic mode set in for both of us, especially because we didn't want to pay the $220 and have to drive almost all the way across town to pick up the car. The driver, though, gave us an out. If we paid $100 in cash right there on the spot, he would be able to leave the car for us to park in the driveway. An amazing alternative, save for the fact that we didn't have any cash. As such, we had to ask the driver to pretty please move his tow truck a little up the street, allowing my dad and I to hop in his car and drive to the nearest Wells Fargo, which was about a mile away. At this point, it was 2:09, literally only 9 minutes after the tow-away deadline. Clearly these people have better surveillance than the CIA. So I should mention at this point, I was wearing pajamas and had my slippers on, but Dad was still fully clothed. He fell asleep in his clothes like he usually does, but since he had been sleeping and I was still fully awake, we were both in different states of delirium. We drove down the road, probably going 80 in a 45, and turned into the shopping plaza where the Wells Fargo is. My slippers slap onto the asphalt and concrete as I sprint to the ATM, withdraw $100, and run back to the car, where we likely set a new land speed record getting back. When we got home, Dad parked his car while I paid the tow truck driver. Thankfully, he was relatively nice about the ordeal, despite his job description requiring taking my car and set the car back down after taking a few photos, likely for procedural job reasons or whatever. So I was able to park my car on the driveway and then head back inside, where Dad and I were finally able to take a breath of relief, even though I'd lost any semblance of tiredness as well as $100. The silver linings of this story, I suppose, is that my dad sent me $100 soon after through the internet. I told him that it was not necessary, but he insisted, so that part of the story was resolved nicely. At least now I have a cautionary tale to remind myself whenever I park my car on the street for some reason. I mean, it just comes down to like, hey, you gotta remember the rules to park on the street or in the driveway, but you know what? This is a stupid rule in the first place. Like, okay, yeah, remember the rule, but if it's not even there to begin with, you don't have to worry about it. What would have you done? Karen sends a disabled man to the ER, posted by ND25607. Here's a brief backstory. I'm 33-year-old female and I double RN for a local clinic during the day and an ER overnight. I'm married with 3 children. So it was an ordinary day at the clinic. There wasn't much going on since Kevin, just dealing with the usual PT or patient woes. Cough and sneezing, minor bodily injury, yeah, all that. Whenever a man comes in, and let's call him Todd, he enters with a service dog, a beautiful border collie. Naturally, the dog brings out all the ladies in my office, myself included. My AA or administrative assistant, named Nicole, does her regular scripted greeting towards the patient and asks the young man what brings him in. He's come in because he wasn't feeling well. The administrative assistant gets him started with the paperwork while myself and the MA, medical assistant, and the rad tech are making cooing noises towards this sweet fur baby. While the patient is filling out the paperwork, this small conversation took place. I say, "Hi sir, how are you today? What brings you in?" Todd says, "Well, you see, I haven't been feeling well. I'm having difficulty breathing in and out of my nose, and I'm congested in my chest." "Hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Can I ask, why do you have a service dog? We are legally allowed to ask this question due to the ADA guidelines." "Oh, I was born with Usher syndrome." "What's Usher syndrome?" Usher syndrome is where, over time, you progressively lose your ability to see or hear. In my case, it started when I left my mom. Yeah, because of my condition, I've also developed an anxiety condition that Abby was trained to sense and cue me down. "Oh, I am so sorry to hear that, sir. Please don't hesitate to call or ask us for help filling out any of the paperwork, okay?" "Oh, thank you, but that won't be necessary. I can see a little, but some things are blurry, but thanks for asking." "Oh, sure, sir. If you need any assistance, let us know. By the way, your dog, she's really sweet. What breed is she?" "Oh, Abby, she's a 3-year-old boarder and she's been my best friend for years. I don't know what I'd do without her. I've raised her since she was a pup." "Oh, how sweet. Well, hey, I best be getting back to work. I'll be seeing you and Miss Abby in just a minute," as I ruffle the pup's collar. "Let me or Nicole know if you need anything." We part ways, briefly to go get the room ready for Todd and Abby. That's when we hear the door chime, indicating that another visitor has entered the facility. Per Nicole, she introduced our Karen. This woman looks like a version of Kirstie Alley, hands her the necessary paperwork, and Karen goes to sit down only a few seats down from Todd. Todd gets up to hand Nicole the paperwork that he's filled out, and Abby perks up and helps Todd across the room. Karen apparently didn't like this and keeps grunting and throwing nasty looks in Todd and Abby's direction. Todd and Abby take their seat and are waiting on myself and the MA to bring them to the back. Karen gets up and approaches Nicole. "Here you go." She hands back the clipboard with the paperwork. "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry," Nicole says, "but I noticed that you haven't completed your paperwork. Is there something I can help you with?" "No, I don't feel comfortable in here." "I'm sorry to hear that. Can I ask how I can make you feel more welcome?" "Why, yes, you can start by removing that filthy flea bag." Ma'am, I'm sorry, but that's something I cannot do," Nicole replies. "Ugh, why not? It's unsanitary to have a filthy animal in a sterile field. That dog doesn't belong in here." Perfect timing. Poor Abby perks her ears up as she is hearing an ambulance pass by the clinic with its horn blaring and brings her to howl. "Ah, shut up, you filthy flea bag," she screeches at the dog. "Shut that stupid mutt up." Todd chimes in, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Shush, Abby." He pulls in her lead and tries to get Abby to settle down. She doesn't often do this. Bull crap. That mangy mutt probably isn't a real service dog anyway. Probably just bought the vest off of eBay, you lying craphead. Nicole replies, "Ma'am, I am sorry, but you cannot be approaching our other patients or the dog. The dog is a service dog for this patient. Please lower your voice. It may disturb the other patients in the office." She tries to redirect Karen as she says, "Would you like my help filling out your paperwork so you can be seen by the provider?" "No, I want this mutt removed and to speak to your provider." "Sure, ma'am." Nicole places a brief call to the back nurse station and requests that I come out to the front and give a brief indication that there is an urgent matter happening out front. So I get up and I go out to the front where I greet and meet our Karen. "Hi, ma'am, how are you doing today?" I say. "Not so good, honey. You see, I came in here because I'm experiencing a lady problem, and this beast here keeps making inappropriate noises and it stinks. I've asked your receptionist here to do her job and get that beast out of here, and she refuses to kick that kid and his mutt out. It's just not okay." "Oh, well, I am so sorry to hear that. What noises are you hearing that you find inappropriate?" "It's howling and panting, and it's just so nasty and unsanitary." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but per the ADA, we cannot discriminate against the disabled or prevent them from using a service animal." "What? He is abusing that animal. How can you people be so cruel and disgusting? You'll burn in heck, you piece of crap." She wags her finger at Todd now. "Ma'am, that is enough. You're going to have to calm down or I am going to have to ask you to leave. There is no need for that name calling or for this issue to escalate. That dog is a service animal and is here to assist his owner in daily tasks. Now, if you would like to still be seen by myself or my provider, I can go ahead and take you to the back and have you wait in an exam room." "Really? I want to see that mutt's papers." She approaches Todd with her hand out, demanding for his registration papers. "Ma'am," and I get between her and Todd to prevent Karen from getting too close, "that is not necessary, and you're not allowed to ask anyone for proof of identification or medical necessity. I think it's best you find another physician's group to care for you, as we won't be able to help you today." "Ugh, how dare you? Why can't you see me? And why do I have to leave? That monster and his filthy mutt should leave," she argues. "I demand you kick them out now." "Ma'am, I have asked you to stop yelling. I am sorry, ma'am, but I will not be able to treat you today as you're acting very inappropriate and causing a commotion here. Could you please leave?" "Oh, shut up. I can do and say whatever the heck I want to, and I will not leave until I am seen and that monster with his mutt are thrown out." While my back and attention was focused on Karen, Abby had gotten up and was alerting to our owner's distress cues from Todd. All of Karen's screaming had begun to make Todd panic. That's when Todd stood up, grabbed Abby's lead, and just collapses on the floor after slightly hitting one of the other chairs in the waiting room. I quickly turn around, rush to Todd, and order Nicole to get the MA and the other RN. "Oh, stop faking it, you stupid idiot." She scuffles and approaches Todd, kicks his boot, trying to make a move. Nicole returns with my MA and RN. While all three of us attend to Todd, Nicole asks for Karen to step back a bit. "Why the heck do I have to step back? He is faking it. Get that dang mutt out of here. I told you this was no place for him." "Shut the heck up, dang it." Not my finest hour, but I was panicked and irritated at this woman's audacity. The whole room goes quiet. This would be one of those very rare occasions that I have ever gotten this angry. I call over my shoulder for Nicole to phone the authorities and an ambulance. I proceed to position Todd on his back with the help of the RN, and I check his airways and use my hands to feel the back of his neck and his head to make sure there's no bleeding or swelling. I also use my stethoscope to check his heart and lungs. I then proceed to try and wake Todd up. He is not responding. I take out my ophthalmoscope from my scrub jacket's pocket and try to look into Todd's eyes. I check his pulse and I ask my RN to get his blood pressure and pulse oximeter using her wrist cuff. I speak over my shoulder to the MA to start an IV line. I don't think it's life-threatening, but I don't want to risk it with how quickly Todd went down. Besides, he did say he was having issues breathing, and I know we do not have that type of equipment within the office if he begins to code. The longest 20 minutes of my life. And an IV drip started. Todd is on the gurney bed of an ambulance and he's being loaded into the back of it. I turned to the local authorities that followed the ambulance and asked them to remove Karen from the premises. But you haven't even asked about how I was doing. Ma'am, you'd be lucky that I don't personally press charges against you for assaulting myself, my staff, and that patient. You should be ashamed of yourself. Oh, pish posh, I did nothing wrong. You, not me, should be arrested for allowing that beast in here. Enough is enough, the officer replies. Karen, please follow me. And the officer just drags her out of the office with her stammering. The office did press for a trespassing ordinance against Karen and escorted her out of the building. We haven't seen or heard from her since. As for Todd, and thanks to one of the daytime employees at the local ER, Todd is doing much better and needed to be observed overnight due to his head trauma and cardiac arrhythmia, just for precautions. He made a full recovery. When his relatives arrived at the hospital, the parents pressed assault charges against the Karen. I have been in communication with their attorney. Sued the HOA. They towed my truck twice off my property with updates. Click the video on your screen so you find the final fallout of this one, and I'll see you there.